The next product is a nitrogen, and you need to use all 4 forms of nitrogen. All 4 forms. Protein, it's always found in manure streams. It's basically an amino acid. We all know urea, we all know nitrate, we all know ammonia. 4 forms. We finally got one university that's making that comment now, publicly, that we need to use all forms of nitrogen. The largest farm in California uses 8200 ammonia. That's it. Why? Cheap, easy, one time. It's absolutely destroying his soil, and so we go from crop to crop to crop to crop to survive in that soil. So the nitrogen we have is a dry powder and a liquid, and it's protein. It's amino acid. It's made from soybean. Soybean is nature's most perfect amino acid profile. The thing about making them in Spain and the process technology is that he does not alter, the term I like to use is adulterate or change the complexion of the molecule or the atom, whatever term you like to use. It's not altered. It's exactly like it came out of the soy plant. It's like a nitrogen fixing bacteria, which is N2 fixed into the plant. You can serve that back out there. What does it do in a conventional program? It will enhance the performance of ammonia. It will hold nitrates that has no affinity to stay in soils, no matter what your CEC is, no matter what your carbon content is, no matter what your soil complexion is like. It will not stay in your soil. What we need to realize when we're looking at plant life, we need to be able to provide the stimulus and the nitrogen in the right form at the right time. That's hard to figure out in agriculture because we don't have the time. We have complex schedules for that. So that's why I'm telling you, you can take a protein nitrogen and extend the life of a nitrogen molecule from nitrate, NO3. You can hold on to NH4, urea. 4 things happen with urea. 1's good, 3 are not good. It volatilizes, it leaches, it gets tied up. How much urea do you actually get from 1 pound of urea when it's applied to warm soils with normal hydration? You probably get, not me, this is messages from universities, we probably get about 35% efficiency out of urea. You can take that efficiency well up by adding protein to it, an amino acid. You can increase the efficiency of it. What does it mean? You can cut your rate, save some dollars. What's the salt index of urea? I told you yesterday. He doesn't remember. I'm picking on him. Salt index is a calculation made in 1943 by Dr. Rader, and it tells you with 1 unit of say nitrogen, how many units of salt are you putting down with 1 unit of nitrogen? In urea, it's 1.6 to 1. So you put almost 2 units of salt down with 1 unit of nitrogen. Where I live, that doesn't work. We salt ourselves in. I say I live in the salt belt, not the sun belt. So you can lower the rate of a risk product by putting protein with it, use less, and get yourself very efficient.
Why is the salt in the urea for?
It's part of the carrier and part of the process of making it. There's only 2 ways to make urea, and they have to have something to start the molecule with. And it's a natural gas. You have to capture the gas. You start with some salt. You know the other fertilizer we use as a carrier? Clay. When you work for the fertilizer companies and you got a bag and you got your 0063 in there and you got a little bit of phosphorus and you put some nitrogen in there, it's a 50-pound bag. Oops, I only got 38 pounds in there. You put 12 pounds of clay, so you sell you 50 pounds of fertilizer. Done it, worked for them. They all do it. They've all done it. Sometimes they use limestone, sometimes they use clay, sometimes they use salt, which are ones available and cheap. That's not fair to do that. But that's what we do is manufacturing fertilizer. Now I'm talking about some of the granular products. Salt index of potassium chloride, muriate of potash, whatever you want to call it. 116. Urea is 75.4, I believe. So there's a risk factor there that you need to put into your program and understand what you may be able to control or reduce. A plant physiologically will produce a protein molecule to grab a nitrate nitrogen and transport it to the cell. It's the transporter, it's the facilitator, it's the carrier, it's the enzyme activator. That's what protein, plants produce hundreds of proteins. We don't know all of them yet. Protein can help you with any fertility program if you integrate it into an existing conventional program. We've got a product of nitrogen that's made from plants. We've got a potassium that's made from plants. This is the hard story. When you look at what happens with potassium in fruit, as it ripens, it pushes or flushes the potassium to the outer rind or rim of the fruit. It's also driving the bricks and the sugar. It's making the fruit taste well. That's what potassium does. It also increases the shelf life. It's the water manager inside the plant. So when we can get potassium from the ground from just one source, no matter what you call it, potassium hydroxide, 13.4 pH. You should not use it unless you're trying to start a fire. Potassium nitrate, 13044. If you're trying to get potassium down there, you've got a limiting factor of nitrate nitrogen you're going to be putting down. You may not want that at the same time. It's extracted from the fruit rind ash after you burn it, and we've got a 20% potassium from fruit. One of a kind, first of a kind. We'll have a potassium that's going to be well under the recommended rates that we started with by the time we finish all of our research. I just finished one trial at Rutgers. I have to use Clemson, I have to use Rutgers, I have to use Mississippi State, I have to use UC Davis. I don't use one lab in my state, I use labs around the country to try to get accurate information and data. So here's the potassium. When I started with it, I've cut my rate 3 times now. I've reduced my rate, my normal rate, by 70%. I'm still getting the potassium into the fruit, into the leaf. I work in California and Arizona and Texas and the East Coast, Carolinas. I don't want to go to Florida. I don't like Florida. If you're not a pirate, don't go. There's one other P that's down there that I'm not going to say. But you just don't want to go to Florida and work as an agronomist, I promise you. It's not fun. This potassium has been a very pleasant surprise for plant nutrition. Foliar applications are extremely safe because it has 0 salt index. 0. The closest thing to it is a 45 salt index. The next highest thing is 116. So here's some things you can use and you can safely spray midday, no risk, compatible with other products. That's what I like about the Ferticell product line from Spain, is I've got some safety factors there that never get me in trouble, and I can go home and sleep at night when I write programs. I take care of some sports fields. I take care of some high cash organic crops in California. Don't criticize me about that. Different state. They're in a lot of trouble with water right now, by the way. I was telling someone here, we shook all the almonds off of our trees so that we could save the water that it takes to flush out an almond, so we could save the tree's life with the water allocation we have. We couldn't grow the nut in the tree and keep it alive at the same time. So we shook the trees about 6 weeks early, took all the nuts and threw them on the ground, going to feed them to cattle. You hate to hear things like that in agriculture. You just hate to hear those things happen. We haven't preserved our water. We don't capture our tailwaters out there. We do a lot of things wrong in agriculture. I like what I see here. I love the fact we're recycling our waste streams here, putting it back into the cycle. I think that's the thing we have to do. We have some mixes of products. We have a couple of new products. It's an interesting line. It's a safe line. Not that it means anything to you, but we go through the process of sending it to ecocert, which is one of the better certification companies in the United States and Europe, to qualify the fact that it's manufactured the same way, the same time, with the same ingredients. That's what that certification should mean to you. not that you need to be an organic grower. It should do the things that let you know that the manufacturer knows what he's doing. Now then, how do you use these products? They should be integrated into a conventional program to get the full deployment and energy that's in the conventional program products that you will use. I don't want to replace a program for you at all. I want to integrate products in there and show you that you can get better performance, safer performance, compatibility performance with integrating proteins and like potassium that comes from a fruit rind ash. I can't tell you what the fruit is. They won't let me say the word. I got permission to tell you about one product yesterday that we just made. And it's called Pro Primer. And if you're like me, you like to make sure you know what you're talking about. So you go do research and you pull white papers, you make sure you study, you make sure you look at everything around that's been published about a particular concept of managing soils. Priming soils has been around a long time. Priming soils has been around a long time. I'm not a real big fan of the word primer because so many wetting agent people use that signal, and that's a tool you use when you don't know what you're doing. It's sometimes in turf management it's a wetting agent. You've got something wrong with the soil, and in 90 times out of 100 it's at the soil surface where it's sealed off. So that's something you're not doing correct. Pro Primer has a list of ingredients that are the products that you see over here. It's got some of the phytohormone package in there. It's got all of them in there. It's got the amino acid, which is called NutriPlus, which has about a 98% purity made from soy. It's in here. There is a little bit of protein nitrogen in here. 2 units. There's a fulvic acid in there with a little bit of humic in the back. And the kick ingredient in here is a carbohydrate. Sugar. C6H12O6. Very, very good soil stimulant biologically and for the plant and for everything living in the soil. This is a sugar from sugar cane. It's so much better than what he's eating right there. For energy conversion. This product should be used to start a season off, to recover a season. If you've got waterlogged soils and you want to recover them, you need to prime the soil. You need to stimulate the soil. It's just like a starter fluid for a diesel engine. Prime it, start it, get it going. Put the ingredients that soil needs to have. Part of the chemistry for energy we talked about yesterday is very critical that it has a carbohydrate, and we all studied the Krebs cycle. We'll study it soon. Get ready. Hard to remember. Citric acid cycle, Krebs cycle. It's this cycle like the nutrients that come from the dairy cattle out here. It goes through this process, through the soil, back into the plant, back into the animal, back around again. And we need to know what it takes to stimulate it and start that cycle running again. A lot of times it's just a carbohydrate. Not a cookie, but it's a carbohydrate that the plant produces. If the plant's shut down producing carbohydrates, let's prime it and start it up. So you would want to use this product in stress, during stress, weather events like a severe drought, like a severe cold recovery. No idea what winter really is. We don't have a clue. And so when we get a little bit of a cold spell, we kill all of our color. I can take this NutriPlus and the Universal, and I put a gallon jug down because I have to mix it for my work crew, that I have the same thing down there that I use for work crew. You know what I'm talking about. So I mix it for them. I put 1 ounce in a gallon of each of those 2 products, and I spray that 48 hours prior to a frost event, and I save my color. Across the street, Penny spent about $10,000 replacing their little flower bed that spells out pennies. I spent about $10, and I lost no color. So there's a lot of things an amino acid does. How does it do that? So that soy coating prevents that moisture from sitting there and freezing that plant. It will just float on that plant. The amino acid will make sure the plant has some energy and some heat. I've done that on bell peppers. I've done that on color. I'm not saying you guys need to do that, but I'm just telling you there's some things plants need to help them go through stress. The other product that we've got is new, is unique. This is all 5 forms of nitrogen in this jug right here. I told you 4, I just now said 5. So we've spooked this up a little bit. I've used this product mixing it myself for about 8 years now. And so I take a urea, an ammoniacal, a nitrate, and a protein. There's your 4. Add 1 more. I take a urea, a low biuret urea. All of you should know what that word means. That's a French word. It means basically no trash. It's clean. I take a low biuret urea, then it's got a inhibitor on it to slow down the release characteristics of it so it can stay in the soil. Triazone is the brand name of the slow release urea. So there's 5 nitrogen in here. Why? You want to start it with a quick release. You want to carry it with protein, get the efficiency up, and then you want to finish it with that slow release. So this is a product to support your normal nitrogen program. It's not a replacement product. It's not a replacement product. Part of this is difficult to think about, that this is a nutritional line of products that you add into a program to enhance the performance of the program. Last product I want to talk to you about, there's a lot of them up here. You can take samples. You can bother him forever. Here is everybody knows what calcium comes in 2 forms out of the earth. Everybody knows what they are. CaSO4, 2H2O, and CaCO3, the chemistry of it. This is CaCO3. This is calcium carbonate. The literature and every professor at every university will tell you it's not water soluble. It's insoluble and it's immobile, and it won't do anything. And I'm not going to shake it up. I'm just going to leave it alone. The process we have in Spain makes this CaCO3 water soluble. It's a 20% calcium, and I'll give you one example of what I use from the largest processor of tomatoes for paste and ketchup and those types of ingredients. Don't eat much ketchup in your life because we put a lot of stuff in there tonight. A lot. There. They try to produce somewhere around 56 to 61 tons an acre for processed tomatoes or cheese. So I was in a trial with some other companies, and I used the 880 Plus, which is a calcium for soil, the first year, and I went to about 62 or 63 tons by using a half gallon with my amino acid. So I got an increase in the production. Next year, they didn't like using it because it's flowable, it's not soluble. So we told them we had this water-soluble calcium. I haven't shaken it up. They said, well, we won't try that. One's 25%, this is 20%. So I asked them to use 7 pounds the first year. No, they didn't like the math. 7's a hard number to divide into acres. They cut it to 5. So we took it to 5, and we produced about 71 tons. Next year, I took it to 2 pounds, and we produced 70 tons of tomatoes per acre. And all I add to calcium and potassium to make them work is an amino acid. That's all I put with it. This is not trick stuff. This is not anything unusual. Amino acids are the foundation of life.
So what were you getting before?
56 to 61. 56 to 61. I got to 71 tons with that.
So what were they applying beforehand?
You don't know what Can 17 is, do you? That's what they were applying. That's a manufactured calcium nitrate, 90011 liquid. It comes as a dry as 15.5-0-0-19 Ca. You can add ammoniacal to it with a heat exchanger, adulterated, and make a Can 17. So it got 17 units of nitrogen and about 9 to 10 units of calcium. That's what they were using. Why? It was easy, it was liquid, it was cheap. That's what they were using. So they were over nitrogen applying their tomatoes. We took that out of our trial. We used some protein. We cut their rate way, way, way down, and we went from 56 to 61 on the average season to around 71 tons an acre with 2 pounds of calcium per acre. 2 pounds.
Right, that was less than what you were.
Yeah, they doubled my rate and didn't increase the production. They found a way in the process that doesn't adulterate it, that makes it water soluble. You can put that over the top, and you can drive the calcium numbers intracellularly. What's a cell made of? We talked about it yesterday. It's just water and calcium. That's all it is in growth. Water and calcium. The drivers are proteins and nitrogen and the other things. But calcium is a very, very misunderstood, not clearly explained to us to use in soils and in plants. We were talking about what's one of the main ingredients that out there in that corn. Carbon. CO2. From the soil respiration, from the atmosphere, from the breakdown of other materials that's in soils, you can get some carbon. Next important ingredient, oxygen. Carbon and oxygen make up 88% of that green mass you see out there. There's a lot of calcium in it. The rest of the fertilizer might be another 6%. Maybe. We spend all of our money on that 6%. We're thinking the carbon and the oxygen is free. In soils that are heavy clay that are sealed off, you may not have the oxygen you need in the root zone. How are you going to get oxygen into the root zone? I've worked for companies where we have blown it into the ground. I've blown up greens. I've had it look like, everybody remember Caddyshack when he was trying to kill the gophers? I've done that, injecting air into the ground. We need to use calcium in the correct way for soil modification and for nutrition and for stamina and for cell wall strength. And we don't get that explained clearly to us. I looked at some soil reports that didn't even look at the calcium content of the soil. So if you don't know what it is, how do you know what you need? The literature says, take that back to your crew at home. There's 20 essential elements. I looked at a soil test that had 6 of them properly identified. 6 of the 20. 3 are supposed to be free. Hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So that leaves 17. Now we got 11 we don't know what in the heck is going on with it. Why would you accept a soil test like that? You shouldn't. You've got to know a benchmark or a baseline to begin a program. You only have to do it once. You can take the Ferticell line and increase the proficiency of calcium by putting amino acid with it. They should tell us that in school. They think the plant's producing all the amino acids it needs. That plant's under stress. If you don't have the exact same harvest every year, that plant's not doing exactly everything it needs to do. It's not producing enough protein for transporters, not producing enough of the enzyme activators, not producing enough of the amino acids. So let's help it out. Let's put a plant-based amino acid out there. Let's put a plant-based protein out there. Let's put a plant-based potassium out there. And let's understand calcium. The other products are dry. I don't want you to think that I've got in this 5-10-10, that's sulfate of potash because it's a dry product. It's Great Salt Lake. It's not my potassium. It's something that we buy and put in there for a dry product. 5-10-10 is a good starter product. We've got a couple more blends of the dry material. Most of our products are liquid. That covers the basics of what they are: amino acid, protein, phytohormone, calcium, potassium. We have some phosphorus. Phosphorus is a dilemma for us in agriculture. I'm happy to answer any questions about products. They're products to be integrated into programs. They're not replacements. Yes, sir.
So you're making up a product right now, if you're ever sitting on a table or that, or some of the stuff that's being used. Where are you getting your products to make what you have there in a bag, like dry stuff? Where is those products coming from?
Europe.
So what are the products and how are you getting them to be processed in a bag? Or
Soy meal, fruit rind ash, CaCO3 from a mine. Calcium carbonate mines are all over the world. We got one in Spain. It's got 73% calcium.
Sorry.
When you get through manufacturing, it comes down to about a 25-28%. If you take it CaCO3, you pull the CO2 off, and you pull the O off. Now you got a Ca++. It comes down to that. So we got all of our materials from Europe. All of them from Europe. They're all grown under a discipline of organic production. None of it comes from this country.
so where's the amino acids and all that kind of stuff?
From the soil,
So how are you extracting all that?
biologically, through a series of, just like making beer. You ever been in a beer factory? You see the fermenters that come down through there and cures it? That's all you do. You biologically digest the soy meal, and it goes through that biological reaction, and you'll get an amino acid. And from the amino acid, you can take it and go over here and extract the nitrogen from the amino protein, 16%. You can leave it here, or you can take it further down this biological line. It's just a fermenter. It's the way things naturally happen. There's no chemistry involved. There's no heat involved except what the biology creates.
So this is all just, all the products are all completely natural.
Absolutely.
It grows every day, basically.
Absolutely. I've got one product that's not in that faction. I've got a tricarboxylic acid I use to fix sodium problems. And if you know what tricarboxylic acid is, it's got a quaternary amine, it's got a citric acid in it, and it will disassociate molecular bonds on salts. And I always look at all of the 8 salts that are in interference with nitrogen, supplementation, and potassium supplementation. Sodium, bicarbonate, chlorides are the bad guys. Boron's not a bad guy anymore. We've always had him on the bad guy list. But we need to know what sulfates are, nitrates, NO3 are the bad guy. It's one of the bigger toxins in our atmosphere today is nitrous oxide. And we don't pay attention to it. And it lasts about 100 years before it dissolves in our atmosphere. So we're using products that are all natural. I got one that's not. It's a carboxylic acid called a tricarboxylic acid. And it's a product he's got called Absolute. If you have some salinity issues, the high rate is 48 ounces an acre on that tricarboxylic acid. My normal rate is about a quart an acre every 14 to 21 days. Been using it for over 20 years. Those are the things I like about the products we have. They're safe and predictable. They're all natural. That's a tough to find word. Organic, I don't like that word. It's misused. But the process is not adulterated. It hadn't been altered chemically with heat or another chemistry. Very safe for you. I had one lady at one show that walked over and picked up the Universal and drank part of it. Bless her heart. I didn't even want to ask her. I didn't even want to ask her. But she heard about what it does, what the hormones do, and she wanted a taste of it. And she did. She's fine. I mean, she took the little jug home. I hope she put it on her plants and not kept drinking it. Any other questions you may have about a product, the company? Clinton's here 24/7, maybe longer. Call him, use him. If you have some programs that you want to evaluate, I can help him with that until we get ourselves adjusted to maybe product integration. I love what I do. I enjoy this company. I'm proud of those products. There's nothing like it out there right now. There will be some more. There's one from India right now, and if you don't use it as soon as you get it, it'll turn to a brick in a New York minute, and that's about 43 seconds. There's always a mimic of a product out there. Somebody's going to buy it, reverse engineer it, and try to make it. And sometimes you can hit it, and sometimes you miss it. I appreciate your time. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.